Okay, you've already been out once. Sucks to be a cow, right? Isn't miserable. Hi, my name is Jill, and this is a two-part video, and I'm going to do part one for everybody. Part two will be over at survivalroad.net for those who are members, donors, and patrons. And with that, this is a little bit about what my Thanksgiving week was like over on the cow farm in the center of New Mexico, living in a tiny great trailer who has not been properly winterized and did not hold up well into the massive amount of winds. I swear it was only like 10 degrees above what was outside on the inside. This is one leaky boat. So with that deep breath, here we go. What do you think, dog? It won't stop snowing. It just won't stop snowing. It's been going all day. You know, it's Thanksgiving, and all I can say is it feels a lot like Christmas. Go freedom! So today's Saturday. We're post Thanksgiving in 2019, and I just wanted to give you a little window into my world. And you know, I've been thinking, what should I make a video about? Because I've been collecting a little bit of the footage that's been going on around here, and none of it's really like good news or happy news or progress from the perspective of a journey. But you know, I watched Jeremiah Johnson again last night, and all right, well, this is our third trip out. I'm exhausted. I was looking at how hard it would be to literally be outside in this kind of weather, you know, that he was on the mountain, and the mountain men, and so many people were. And you know, one of the things that I've really learned in this process that I've been on for so long, I was reminded of acutely, you know, in the last few days, is that, you know, that the period of time where I was in the system, you know, mentally and emotionally, it was a constant struggle because I didn't want to be there, to just get through, right, to just survive. Even though everything outside looked okay, inside it was just such a struggle to get through. And now I feel like I'm in a reverse situation, whereas I am on the inside, I feel okay. Filled up with some water. That was totally empty this morning. There's still something wrong with the water, so that's good though. It filled up some. The ability to get through physically is this huge, overwhelming struggle. And I find myself really hesitating to want to share the realities because I don't like the problem solving. I don't like the feedback that says you should, kind of a thing. I don't like the advice. I don't like pity. I don't like any of that stuff other than, you know, being able to make fun of it a little bit. It really doesn't serve a purpose because it's just what is. And it really occurred to me that, you know, part of my not wanting to share a lot of what goes on around here is because it is uncomfortable for other people to watch because we don't like the idea that we can be uncomfortable. And I've been thinking a lot about that in terms of what is wild and what is domestication. And, you know, it's been, we had a lot of snow. We've had more than 24 hours of just ferocious, ferocious wind, you know, 40 to 60 mile an hour, constant wind, to, you know, watching, you know, these cows get fed and these cows didn't have food for 2 days. And now these cows had some food, but these guys over here don't. And they're staring at each other, and how, you know, as a domesticated animal, they are vulnerable to when people come over to feed them. But the wild animals are having the same problem. You know, what do the rabbits do? What do the antelope do? What do the birds do? Everybody has a problem when the weather goes bad, because the reality is the physical world is hard, and there are periods of it when it is a struggle and that there is discomfort. And suffering, and it always, almost always passes. But we as humans are so uncomfortable watching it. It becomes a problem to be solved. It's something to be avoided, and how we like to hide those pieces because of the reactions of other people. And what I've learned is I will take physical discomfort any day of the week over mental and emotional discomfort. When my life looked right, it was horrible inside, but everybody else felt okay. All right, so the wind is here. How is your week going? Now I feel like, the outside of my life looks a little bit rough. But the inside is okay. But there isn't the ability to understand that over the course of, figuring out how to show you what actually goes on. And, while I was watching that movie, there's parts of it like, I don't like the horses out being dragged around, and the mules got the heavy stuff, and, the Indian squaw gets married off whether she wants to or not. And life is just complicated and hard in many, many ways over, the eons of time. And, the takeaway is that there is no version that's always comfortable and safe all the time. And I feel like, that's part of this Stay Human message that I've been trying to figure out how to talk about, is that there's always going to be discomfort and suffering. And the question is, do we want to be responsible for trying to move through it? Or do we want to give that power over to somebody else, like be a cow and just randomly wait for someone to feed us? Or do we want to be the farmer and the rancher who has to make the food for ourselves? Either way, we still are going to be really uncomfortable when the weather is bad. And that's, to me, that big dividing line. Call it freedom, call it responsibility, consequences, whatever you want to call it. All right, so I just ran and got water and made some tracks so it's easier to walk in. The wind is getting ready to kick up 60 mile an hour pretty soon, all night, just because it's so fabulous here in New Mexico. So the cows won't go feed themselves, so I also tried to lay tracks out to the water. Somebody's out there yelling at the top of his lungs. That's that big dividing line. And I was thinking about, Jeremiah Johnson, Robert Redford, all the physical discomfort he had to go through, and the emotional and the mental discomfort, by choosing to live the way he chose to live when almost nobody else would do it. And the only people that understood were the other people who did that with him. And I think that is probably a really good example that there's just some of us who we don't look right to the outside world, but there's something going on within us that makes it all make sense. And I find myself struggling with how to do these in such a way that it makes you feel okay in many ways, even though, that's not my problem and not my responsibility. When the reality is like, I'm ready to pull my hair out, and all I can do is just get through until things clear up a little bit. But, with the constant wind and no sleep, and everything is physically so hard, trying to deal with the water situation. The water didn't get fixed. It's still broken, so there's no pressure, and I don't have enough, and all this other stuff. And all these little things are so frustrating, but they're part of this real life. And we've been trained to look at them as just a problem to solve, to get away from it so we can be comfortable and safe again. And it's taken me a long time to figure out how, and I still am working on it, how to be okay with the discomfort of things not being okay for a while, even when it makes everybody else uncomfortable. And is there value in that? And I think that's a question you have to answer for yourself. I understand it for myself, but I think for some of you who are thinking about, going off grid or getting out of the city or the urban areas, I don't know how I would explain this to anybody else, because everybody has a very different experience. There's lots of people living exactly like I'm living, and it doesn't bother them at all. And there's people, other like, you know, for me, it's really hard a lot of the time, and I don't do well in some of these situations, but I would rather be in this situation any day of the week than in the situations I was in before being part of the system. So I just wanted to do a tiny window into what actually kind of goes on sometimes. I know it's not what people want to hear, and I don't even know what people want to hear, but when it's like this, it's all I can do to just kind of get by until there's a break in the wind, in the temperature, in the snow, in the mud, something. But for right now, I'm just holding on, and I totally understand why all those women went crazy out here on these plains with the wind and had to get hauled off, because I swear I'm about right there too. So this is part one. Part two will be over for members and donors over at survivalroad.net. You will get an email link to that hopefully soon. And with that, we're going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to see you next time.